Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. I am Professor Sides. You can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides. Today is Saturday, April 23rd, 2022, and this episode covers all of today's Major League Baseball games. In case you're new here, I've built a mathematical model for win probability, and I analyze weather data in order to come up with some plays on totals. I'll make one pick and one pick only for every game played, Monday through Saturday. That doesn't mean I recommend you do the same. I'm just giving you the information as to what I like the most, where my head is for each matchup. As I go through the plays, remember there are no locks in gambling, so it'll give you our loves, likes, and leans to help you decide which picks you might want to play and how I recommend scaling your wagers. With that in mind, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I like to say it'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Yesterday, another great day. We've had more of those than bad ones, and that's what we're after here. Up a little over 7 units, puts us up a tidy 24 units on the season with a 5% ROI. Just slow and steady wins the race. We're just aiming to do this all year. It's been great so far. Hopefully we'll keep it going today. Before we get to that, slight reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free and the only way to ensure you don't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content this channel provides. Share with a friend if you and others in the game. Hit me up on Twitter or drop a comment. If you're on YouTube, I love those and try to respond to as many as I can. A lot of afternoon games, of course, on this beautiful Saturday. Going to start off with the Giants at the Nationals, 105 Eastern first pitch. Alex Wood versus Aaron Sanchez. We've got some nice weather for this one, somewhere around 70 degrees, slight breeze out, nothing that's really going to affect anything. The model thinks that the Giants should be a minus 147 favorite, and that falls squarely in the middle of where this line sits as of right now. However, I'm going to go with the Giants on this one. They're minus 155, and I'm going to give this a B grade. I think the model undervalues how good Alex Wood is. His biggest downside is that he's not going to go 8 innings, almost assuredly. He'll have like one star like that all season. For the most part, though, he's going to give you 5 good innings, maybe 6. He's got to bear down for a couple good Nationals hitters, but otherwise I think that Nats offense is pretty weak. And then the Giants have a pretty good bullpen that they can turn it over to. I think the model's just undervaluing Wood because, he's not the good pitcher like, a Scherzer is, or one of those guys who's going to go potentially 8 innings. And so I think there's a little bit of value that the model's not seeing. Nationals throwing Aaron Sanchez, who I do not trust whatsoever. So I think the Giants are the right side. I'm going to lay the minus 155, only a B pick because I like it, but the model doesn't give an edge either direction. But I think Giants are the side you want to be on in this one. Same time slot, 105 Eastern first pitch. Guardians at the Yankees. Cal Quantrill versus Nestor Cortez. 2 pitchers that are both pretty solid. Every once in a while they'll have their blow-ups. For the most part, more good than bad from both of these guys. The model thinks the Yankees should be a minus 153 favorite, and so it's again saying fade the Yankees. I'm not averse to fading the Yankees. They did all 3 games against the Tigers last week. What I will say, though, about that is if it's going to say that every game, that's probably not something you want to do 162 times. So if the model is going to just constantly look that way, then we're going to potentially want to pick our spots. This isn't a bad one. Guardians are plus 161 right now. Quantrill's not a bad pitcher. So if you like dogs, the Guardians aren't a bad look here. It's not one that I would stay away from necessarily. However, I'm making one pick on each game. I'm going under instead, under 8. It's minus 120 with an A pick. Like I said, more good than bad from these pitchers. The weather's going to be 60 degrees, so the ball's not flying. Winds are across, so that's going to either push pulled balls, foul potentially. Not a lot of wind really to speak of. Really, it's more about the temperature here, more about the fact that we got 60-degree weather. And 2 pitchers I like. The game went under yesterday. I kind of see today being more of the same. So a pick for me, under 8 in Guardians Yankees. 1:10 Eastern first pitch, Rockies at the Tigers. This is the same pitching matchup that we had yesterday. I have the same number on it as I did then, which is Tigers minus 123. I talked yesterday about how I like the under given the weather, and I like the Rockies given the odds. The odds are a little bit different this morning, and we're not getting quite the same value. Yesterday we were up in the high plus 130s. Today we're in the plus 120s. So maybe some value on the Rockies, but not like yesterday. Yesterday, like I made the comment, I just couldn't pass up the value on Colorado. Today, with what I'm seeing, that's not the case. So if you are getting back in the mid 130s later in the day, fire away on the Rockies, but I'm going to need better odds than what I'm seeing now. Instead, I'm going to go under as well as I talked about yesterday. Only a C pick, though, for me. Under 8. The weather's going to start off chilly, but it's going to warm up to close to 80 degrees by the end of the game. Winds are blowing in, though, from right center, about 10 miles an hour. So I think under is probably the better look. I talked about this yesterday. The Rockies' bats oftentimes disappear away from course. They look great so far, but they played most of their games at home. I think under's the way you want to look, but with minus 120, I'd rather have 8.5 with this weather. So I lean under. Not what I want to be over-invested in, though. 2:20 Eastern, first pitch, Pirates at the Cubs. Zach Thompson versus weather in this one. Low 80s. It's April. It's a warm day in Chicago. Winds out to left field at 25 miles per hour. Couple ways you can look on this one. The model thinks Cubs minus 134. So the model thinks Pirates plus 150 is the play. I think Pirates plus 150 is a good play also for two reasons. One, in general, early in the season, I trust the model more times than I don't. It generally does this well. They got us to the window last night with good value. I think they have a good chance to do it today. The weather being as is, there could be a lot of home runs, which increases variability, which makes it more likely to be a coin toss, who the heck knows type game. And at that point, when you're getting something like plus 150, absolutely, right? If you give me plus 150 on flipping a coin, I'm taking that every day of the week and twice on Sunday, right? It's one of those things that I may not win the one time you do it, but in the long run, it's a great play. So with the winds blowing out so strong, this is a who knows what's going to happen game. So plus 150 on Pirates makes a lot of sense. My official pick, though, I'm actually going a different direction. I'm going over 9.5. It's about even money right now, and I'm giving this an A grade. We know that scoring is down. I've been hard under for sure. These are two pitchers who I think can give up some runs. Zach Thompson's done it this year. I talked early in the season about I liked backing him. It has not paid dividends, and it's only a couple starts, so I'm not, sounding the alarms just yet. Last year, his underlying metrics weren't as good as he pitched. So it was kind of a cautionary tale. It wasn't one that I, just kind of something I was keeping an eye on. He seemed to have decent results. This year's underlying metrics are just as bad as he's looked. That doesn't mean he's not still solid, but I don't have any problems taking it over with him based off what I've seen so far. Kyle Hendricks, a pitcher that's been up and down. Both of these pitchers are going to be about 40% ground ball. What does that mean? That means 60% of the time, either guys are hitting line drives, which leads to a lot of base runners, or fly balls. With this wind out to left field, a right-handed hitter, a routine fly ball is probably getting out with the 80 degrees and that wind. Love the over. 9.5. This game gets to double digits easily, in my opinion. Moving on to the late afternoon games, 4:05 Eastern, first pitch, Brewers at the Phillies. Adrian Hauser versus Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler has just struggled. We've talked about that on this podcast here. I'm backing the Phillies anyway. Giving it a B pick, minus 141. The model thinks they should be minus 143, so small amount of value. My numbers on Wheeler have come, I don't say crashing down, but they're starting to head that direction. I'm going to hold out faith, at least for one more outing here, that he'll be fine. He got a late start to spring training. He missed that first start because he was sticking around pitching, a simulated game or whatever it was back in Florida. I think he'll still be okay. You can hear the hesitation of my voice, though. That's why I don't love it. I think he's a much better pitcher than Adrian Hauser. I still think the Phillies' bats are better than the Brewers' bats. I think that this number should be closer to 160. I think if you played this opening day or first series of the week, right? Because obviously Hauser would be their opening day starter. You would have seen maybe more like minus 170 on the Phillies. I think it's a bit of an overreaction to how bad Wheeler's looked, but it's kind of like I mentioned. I mentioned earlier this week. I don't remember what day it was. I took that under with a couple pitchers that I was like, hey, they haven't done me good so far. This is my last stand with them. I still believe in them, right? And that game I think was 2-1. So it's the same sort of thing. Like we're early enough where I'm like, I'm not buying into it just yet. I think he's fine. I think there's value on the Phillies. I think they're the better team. I think he got a much better pitcher. But man, it's a little scary with how he's looked. So I'm just gonna hold my breath through that whole game. It seems like weather-wise, low 60s, winds blowing out, but not really with much speed. 5 miles an hour won't affect things much. No weather a situation to talk about on that one. We missed the first 5 over yesterday in that game. There were 6 base runners in the first inning, and we got 1 run out of it. It didn't necessarily feel doomed after that because you thought they could still keep it going, but they couldn't. Definitely had their chances there, but we fell just short on that one, unfortunately. When we didn't fall just short on, White Sox at the Twins, 4:05 Eastern today. Vince Velasquez versus Dylan Bundy, an easy A-under pick yesterday. I talked about how our edges are biggest when the weather is wonky and people just aren't realizing it. I'm going the same angle today with that. Sidewise, the model thinks the Twins should be minus 121. The best number I see out there really right now is about minus 122. So maybe if you wanted to look Twins, that's not a bad look. It's kind of a stretch. I think I'm going the same way as yesterday. I'm going under 8.5. It's minus 105 right now. A pick for me. There is some chance of rain. We talked about if there are delays. Yesterday we talked about how that tends to help pitchers more than hitters. Weather will be 70 degrees, so no real boost or for pitchers or hitters with regards to the temperature. But the winds will be blowing in from right field at almost 30 miles an hour for the duration of this game. In / a little bit across. So what it's going to do is it's going to take anything that a lefty hits to right field, anything opposite field, it's going to knock it right down. Anything that's to left field, it's almost assuredly going to push it down or push it foul. It's not a cross out, so that might help a routine fly ball hook around the foul pole. It's a little bit more in is what it's looking like. So maybe something would help a righty if you just hit it perfect. Otherwise, it's going to really knock the ball down. So with these extreme winds, I'm going under 8.5 A pick. Same idea as yesterday. Dylan Bundy for the Twins is definitely a pitcher that I trust. Velasquez, up and down. I don't know. I think it's more about weather than anything else. As long as he doesn't, give up 6-7 line drives in a row, he should be fine on that one. Most fly balls are going to hold up and be caught in this one. Rangers at the A's. Couldn't get there last night with the Athletics. Tonight, the pitching matchup definitely benefits them. Last night, I talked about the pitching matchup. I didn't really like, either pitcher in that one. Our guy got hit around pretty hard. The Rangers guy didn't really like either one of them, though. This one is the opposite of that. Martin Perez for the Rangers, I think, is below average. Frankie Montas for the A's, I think, is well above average. This line makes no sense to me. I'm writing it again. Athletics minus 125, A pick. The A's were still up on. The Rangers fading. We're still up on. I'm not going to let last night scare me away. I'm not trying to make back the profits from last night, right? That's not the approach that we're taking. We're just taking the model says the A's should be minus 145, maybe minus 150 personally seems about right for this one. I think the A's win this about 60% of the time. Minus 125 is great value. A pick for me. Again, ignoring last night, just saying, what do I think makes sense today? Weather-wise, kind of about like it's been. Slight breeze out, nothing really to speak of, about 70 degrees. So nothing to talk about there. Cardinals at the Reds, 14 Eastern first pitch, Dakota Hudson versus Tyler Mahle. Same sort of warm weather here that we have up at Wrigley Field today without the crazy winds. Low 80 degrees. Winds will be in from right field at about 10 miles an hour. The model thinks the Cardinals should be a minus 107 favorite. So as of the time of this recording, no real value on either side. If that number ekes out, you can get plus money on the Cardinals. I think it's a solid look. I think either way, though, I think under is still the better play. Under 8.5. It's a B pick for me. Not an A pick, simply because I trust Mahle completely. Dakota Hudson, I don't know what to make of him. He hasn't pitched a lot. He's been hurt mostly. It's been several years since he's had a full season, so I have him right about league average, but I think there's just a lot of variability with a guy like that. So I don't want to be over-invested in a game where he might come out and pitch fantastic. I don't think the Reds' bats are very good, so if he pitches decent, he should have a good start. But with a guy who hasn't pitched much and lots of variability, he might get hit around too. I don't know how deep he's going to be able to go. It's just one of those things where there's just a few too many unknowns for me to love this one. But in general, I think 8.5 is too many. I think Mahle's a pretty good pitcher, and I don't really think either offense is that great. Warmer temperatures, but wind blowing in should kind of counteract that and cancel out that effect. 4:10 Eastern, first pitch, Blue Jays at the Astros. Alek Manoah versus Jose Urquidy. The model thinks the Blue Jays should be a minus 107 favorite. I don't know what to make of that. I feel like the model says play the Astros, and I have to tell you, as an Astros fan, I looked at that hard. I looked. I was like, is something wrong with the coding? Did something not pull in right? I was shocked. I don't see how. Manoah is a better pitcher than Urquidy. Urquidy's solid for sure, but Manoah is a better pitcher than Urquidy is. And the Astros offense is, I've talked about it multiple times this season. I talked about it yesterday. Their bats are broken at this point. Tucker's been basically useless. Yuli has been basically useless. Altuve was basically useless. Now he's not even there. They pinch hit some guy. I'm an Astros fan. I know like prospects and everything. They pinch hit some guy at the end of the game. I've literally never heard of. I don't even know. I don't know how it's possible. So I mean, I don't see how, with the Blue Jays having the better pitcher and the better offense for sure right now. Normally I would probably full strength, everyone playing well. Blue Jays got a good offense. I think the Astros offense might be a little bit better. It's really good offense, what we saw last year, but right now, not even close. This blows my mind. I would have said the Blue Jays should be a much bigger favorite than this. So all that to say, I am not trusting the model and playing the Astros on this one. That doesn't mean they won't win, but I mean, I would need much more than plus 112. I need more value than that, right? I don't mind taking dogs as long as I say, hey, there's value on this in the long run. It's going to pay off. I don't think the Astros plus 112 is going to pay off in the long run. Instead, I'm going under 8.5. It is heavily juiced right now, around minus 120. A pick for me, though, I don't trust the Astros bats whatsoever. I don't think they score. I think Manoah is a great pitcher. Like I said, Urquidy's solid. I think he's going to be able to hold the Blue Jays down a little bit. 8.5 is just too many runs in this situation. A pick for me, under 8.5 in that one. Which takes us to our night games. Red Sox at the Rays, 6:10 Eastern, first pitch. Garrett Whitlock for the Red Sox and JP Fireisen for the Rays. I like Fireisen here for the Rays. I think he's very undervalued. I think he's a good pitcher. I've talked about him before. I've backed him and or played the unders with him previously. I think that's the way you want to look here today, either backing him or taking the under. In this case, the model thinks the Rays should be minus 118. That's about the number they are. In choosing between if I wanted the under or the Rays, I'll take the Rays minus 120 B pick. They're pretty equivalent to me. I'll go with the Rays minus 120 just because Whitlock for the Red Sox isn't that good. I have him well below average. And so just in case the Rays bats go off a little bit, I don't want to have to be rooting for a bad pitcher. Maybe the Red Sox throw a mediocre pitcher later if they're down a bit. I just don't want to deal with that scenario. So I think Rays minus 120 is a better angle. I think there's value at that number. I think Fireisen's the way to go. I think the model doesn't realize that he's good because he's been in some weird spots opening, and he looked really good at the end of the year last year. I'm not sure it's picking up completely on that. So I think the model's undervaluing them. So the model says Rays minus 118. I think it should be a little bit higher. I like Rays minus 120. If this gets out into the minus 130 range, maybe then you look under instead because I don't see that many runs being scored. Game 2 of the Rockies at the Tigers. Reverse on the weather on this one. We've got warm temperatures to start and then cooling off at night. Wind still slightly blowing in. This one's Austin Gomer versus Bo Brisky. I'm taking the Tigers on this one at even money with a B pick. The model thinks the Tigers should be a minus 109 favorite. So there's value here on the Tigers. I like the fact that, like I said, I think the Rockies bats might disappear on the road. So value here on the Tigers. I think these two pitchers aren't drastically different enough to justify the Rockies being favored. Gomer's a better pitcher. But I don't think on the road, I don't think he's a better pitcher by enough to warrant them being favored. So I think this should be Tigers should at least be favored in this one. So even money's great value, B pick for me. Debated this one being an A pick, just with more of an unknown starter for Detroit. Again, don't want to be over-invested with high variability there. 7:20 Eastern, first pitch, Marlins at the Braves. Marlins put up as many runs off the Braves as you and I did last night, getting shut out 3-0. In that one, Eliezer Hernandez versus Ian Anderson tonight. Nice weather for Atlanta, mid-70s. Winds be blowing in, but not really strong, about 5 to 10 miles an hour. The model thinks the Braves should be a minus 168 favorite, so I'll lay it with the Braves minus 152. A B pick for me, kind of a B plus pick. I like the Braves here. I think they're the right side. Can't make it an A pick though, because to have that third unit on them would require me to be a little over invested. So I kind of want to get one of those B plus picks. I like it. I'm comfortable laying the 3 units to win the 2, which kind of falls right in between our normal A picks, which would be lay 3 to win 3, and our B picks would be lay 2 to win 2. We're having to lay 3 to win 2, so kind of a B plus pick here. I think the Braves are the right side. I think Eliezer Hernandez is really the lone weak spot in the Marlins rotation. I think Anderson's a much better pitcher. Mets at the Diamondbacks. Trevor Williams versus Humberto Castellanos. Look, you got 2 ways to look on this one. It's either Mets or the under. Castellanos has pitched okay at times, but isn't good. The Diamondbacks offense scoring some runs as of late, but I still don't buy it. The model thinks the Mets should be a minus 145 favorite. They're minus 128. So I'm backing that, trusting it. A pick for me on the Mets, minus 128. If you were a little bit afraid of Trevor Williams starting for the Mets and what that means for them pitching, maybe you just go under. It's a spot for me where I'm going Mets because I think if the Diamondbacks offense is real or not real, but the changes are now they're just average, right? Because they're not going to be good. But now if what's happened is if they're just average and they score a few runs, I think the Mets can score a few runs. Castellanos is not going 7 or 8. When you get into the bullpens, I think the Mets bullpen's better than Diamondbacks. So I think there's more ways the Mets win this than not. And I think under's not a bad look given what we've seen from the Diamondbacks. But at minus 128, I think Mets is the side you have to look to. Now, if this number jumps out and is 140, 150, now there's still more ways the Mets win, but you have to win even more for this to be a smart investment. So, like I said, if it gets out that minus 140, minus 150 range, that's when I'm switching to the under. But at minus 128, I think Mets is the side with the under is kind of my backup option. If you're comfortable playing, making 2 picks for a game, then under's also a solid look, and I might, play it at a little bit less of my investment than I'm playing the Mets. That's just something to think about on that one. Dodgers at the Padres. Tyler Anderson versus a Yu Darvish that I just do not believe in personally. That's just my stated opinion here. The model has him at below average at this point, and I feel like it's coming down, and it's coming down hard. Weather-wise, will be in the low 60s. Winds blowing in, but not very strong. It's basically the same thing as yesterday. The model thinks the Dodgers should be a minus 105 favorite, which says not to play them, but not to fade them. And given that the model wanted to fade the Dodgers for so long, yesterday I said, I think that means we take the Dodgers. They won fairly easily. Slow start for them, but then kind of ran away at the end. So I'm doing the same thing today. The pick is Dodgers minus 113. B pick for me. It's similar to the Giants game earlier, where I said the model didn't really like either side, but I think the Giants are the right side, and I gave my reasons for that there. Same thing here. Model doesn't like the Dodgers, but I think they're the right side for the reasons discussed. So B pick for me on the Dodgers, minus 113. I think Tyler Anderson is not bad. And I think, again, why he's getting maybe a little bit of a knock is the same reason that the model's knocking the Giants for Alex Wood is he's not going to go deep, especially given that he's started off in the bullpen. He's not going to go, but maybe – I mean, I've seen him one of the outings. I think he went several innings. So he might go 4, right? But he's not going to go 6 innings for sure. And then he goes to the bullpen. But if the Dodgers are winning and or tied, maybe down 1, they've got a lot of good relievers they can go to. And so I don't really think that's a downside to me. If he goes hard for 4 innings, 3 innings, turn over to the bullpen. The Dodgers have been fairly successful with their bullpen games so far. We talked, earlier on this podcast and previous episodes about teams that do better with them or not. The Dodgers have been pretty solid with their bullpen games. So that's kind of how this sets up. It's a little bit normal start, a little bit bullpen. It's a little bit in between, I think. I don't expect Anderson to go much more than 3 or 4, but I think their bullpen's fine. I think the Dodgers are the right side, minus 113. Personally, This number would need to get out into about 130 or so before I had a little bit of a pause. It'd have to be about to 140 before I was like, there's just no, you can't do it. I think the Dodgers decided you won on this one. Whereas with the Angels, Spencer Watkins versus Noah Syndergaard. Nice weather. Starting off in the mid-70s, falling to the mid-60s. Winds will be blowing out a little bit, not a lot. It's kind of the same pattern we have for most of the day, other than a couple stadiums we're going to have basically no wind or no wind to speak of. The model thinks the Angels should be a whopping minus 239 favorite. I had to do a double take there. Seeing the Angels favored by that much over anybody is just surprising, but Syndergaard has been fantastic. I don't want to be on the Angels because I don't trust their bats. After watching last night, I'm fairly convinced I could suit up for the Orioles, go on the mound, and throw a shutout inning. I mean, my fastball's only, it's probably more like low 70s. I play in an old man's league. I have people on the team who are like, yeah, you're throwing upper 70s, you're touching 80. I don't think that's true, but I think my low 70s fastball could go out and throw a shutout inning tonight watching that game last night against the Angels. Obviously, that's not true, but I don't trust the Angels bat, so I sure don't want to lay a price like minus 240, 250, whatever. That's just insanity. And I don't really want to lay the run line because that implies that they've got to score a bunch of runs. You could look Orioles team total under. I don't see them scoring much off of Syndergaard, but I don't know if they just have the full game under both teams. It's 8.5. I just rather have both because I don't trust the Angels to score off any of these Oriole pitchers, it seems like, and I sure don't trust anybody to score off of Thor. So I like this pick a lot, under 8.5, and it's minus 105. A pick for me, one of the strongest ones on the board. I think last night we got a little nervous on the under, and it still hit for us. Got a little nervous because the Orioles started scoring. I just don't see that happening tonight. So maybe the Angels score some runs. Maybe they don't, but they'd have to score way more than I think they can in order for this to go under. Most of the Orioles games have been under this year. I think let's keep riding it under 8.5, a pick for me. And our last game of the night, 9:10 Eastern, Royals at the Mariners. Chris Bubik versus Matt Brash. Two solid pitchers. Model thinks the Mariners should be minus 145, which falls right in between the numbers as I see them now. So right now, no edge on either side. If the number was lower, I'd love to take the Mariners, but having to lay minus 150, it's just a little steep. Baseball's got a lot of variability in it, so I just don't want to lay those type of odds unless I feel more confident than I do. I'll go under 7.5 instead. It's minus 117, so it's a C pick. It's a C pick because I don't love 7.5. I'd rather it be 8, and I don't love minus 117. I'd rather it be minus 110. So if you've got a 7.5 minus 110, maybe that's a B pick. 7.5 minus 105, definitely a B pick. Or if you're having to lay odds like this, I'd rather lay under 8 and get that push protection in case you have, a 5-3, a 6-2 type game. I think under's the side you want to be in. So it's a true lean for me. I lean under, but it's not one I want to be over invested in just because it's the book I'm using here. 7.5 is not the greatest number, and having to lay extra juice is not the greatest thing either. So one of those I can live with both. I'll go under. I think it's the right side. Only a C pick, not one I want to be heavily invested in for our nightcap. A picks. Recap for you here. A lot of them today. It worked well for us last Saturday. Hopefully it does again today. Guardians at the Yankees, under 8. Pirates at the Cubs, over 9.5. An A pick for an over. I want to see some fun comments in the comment section about that one. Some of y'all will be like, I never thought I'd see the day. We're going to take some overs in the summer when it warms up, for sure. It's just early in the season. That's not the way we look, but we are today. White Sox at the Twins, I'm going under 8.5. Rangers at the Athletics, I'm taking the Athletics at minus 125. Blue Jays and Astros, I'm going under 8.5. Mets at the Diamondbacks, I'm going Mets minus 128. And then Orioles and Angels, I'm going under 8.5. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Picks with the Professor. A reminder, check out that Google Sheet for model projections, picks, and results. You can find that link at the website. In case you've lost, that's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. If you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content provided on this channel is dropped right into your feed. I will see you Monday. I will post the model output again tomorrow, but no show or official picks from me during the regular season on Sundays. Best of luck this weekend. And until next week, remember, You can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.